The Red Eye Radio podcast is a service of Freightliner and Detroit.
Now it's Red Eye Radio with talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And thank you so much. Glad to be along when the guys are away. Hope, man, I really hope you had some downtime over the weekend. We've got a lot to get to. Let me give you the talk lines. 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. Well, as most of you know, I'm in Texas, in Dallas-Fort Worth area. And it was just November, 2017. A guy walks into a church, kills 24 people. Through a series of laws that were passed, churches now can defend themselves. And that's exactly what happened today. Good friend Clayton Neville, he was on this story today, and I want you to hear what Clayton had to say.
The shooting happened at a Sunday morning service at West Freeway Church of Christ in White Settlement near Fort Worth. The city's police chief, J.P. Bevering, says a gunman shot and killed one person and injured another.
A couple of members of the church returned fire, striking the suspect who died at the scene.
This man lives near the church and calls the response from armed parishioners heroic.
It can happen anywhere, anytime, and the more prepared you are, the better it's going to turn out in a bad situation.
Police now investigating a possible motive. Clayton Neville, Fort Worth.
And, of course, I want to thank Westwood One News for that. Clayton, great guy, and he's all over this, and it's still developing. My question is, why was there even a question that we could allow parishioners, we could allow congregants to arm themselves? Of course we should. If you're looking for a manifestation of evil incarnate, look no further than stories just like this. Churches are supposed to be a sacred place, right? They're supposed to be. The shooting at this church, it was near Fort Worth. 2 worshipers were killed. Some congregants pulled out their pistols and rushed toward the shooter. Maybe that's a good message to be sent. If you are evil incarnate walking the earth, before you walk inside a church and murder people, you need to know there are people there that will defend themselves. Texas Governor Greg Abbott, he came out today and praised the people there who took the action during the shooting, saying in an official statement that places of worship are meant to be sacred. I'm grateful for the church members who acted quickly to take down the shooter and help prevent further loss of life. Personally, I've been around for a day or two. I don't see any other way to look at this. I mean, why should you be totally defenseless, sitting in a pew while someone off their rocker simply points a gun and starts killing people? Like what happened in 2017 here in Texas. 24 people, including children, were shot and killed by this monster. Nobody had a way to defend themselves. So already, I mean, like I said, that's the way I see it. It's just common sense to me. Already we're getting all kinds of reports. This is why we need stronger gun control. This is why we need blah, 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 blah. Don't you people ever get tired of getting it wrong? This has nothing to do with a gun or a machete, like the people that were killed at the rabbi's home. It has nothing to do with anything but evil people. I for the life of me, I carry all the time. Have for many, many years. I mean, I love what I do for a living, but I don't want to get shot and killed for it. I started at a radio station. My producer at the time, Karen Rhodes, we called her Rhodey, was the producer for a man that was at that station that was killed by the order. If you've ever seen that movie, Talk Radio, Alan Berg was his name, and the radio station was KOA. So when that was my very first talk show gig. When I got into radio, it was top of mind for me. Yeah, I love what I do. I love talking with people. And yes, not everybody agrees, but good Lord. I mean, how many attacks is it going to take for these, free to be you and me, hair on fire, wide-eyed liberals? Well, if we just had a giant magnet and sucked up all the guns, we'd all be safer. Okay, do you think that's going to happen? Do you think there's going to be gun confiscation? It's not going to happen. It would be a physical impossibility, at least in America. So to those people that lost lives near Fort Worth, our thoughts and prayers are with you. To those people that pulled out their pistols and ran toward the guy and took him out, good for you. There's no telling how many people would have died had these people not done that. Now, I would like to see that become a national law. I mean, we need to send the message that no, you can't prey on the most defenseless among us. You can't prey on people sitting in a pew, honoring and worshiping their God. You can't do that because somebody in there is going to stand up, put their Bible or hymn book down, and blow you away. That's the message that needs to be sent. I was talking before I went on the air. I'm very, very, very lucky. My son-in-law is a police officer. He's a sergeant. And most all cops moonlight. And he has for many, many years, and I'm not going to give specifics, but at a church, very, very large church. They also have an outreach program, clothing and food and so on. He is there to make sure everybody, stays doing what they're supposed to be doing. That the overflow from one place doesn't end up in the church. I mean, he loves the job because he's met so many great people at the church, and my daughter and he, they have friends now that attend that church. But it never made any sense to me. You would hear stories about people that would walk into a church and just start picking people off. Now, if guns scare you, yeah, you shouldn't have one. If you don't like guns, you probably ought to, search yourself and figure out why. Personally, and I know a lot of you are going to disagree, but personally, I think every man and woman in this country that chooses to, that can demonstrate some proficiency, should arm themselves. It's not the same place where I grew up. It's not the same place where you grew up. I don't want to be sitting in a pizza joint. I don't want to be sitting in a restaurant. I don't want to be sitting anywhere in a church and have absolutely no way to defend myself. I've said it so many times. You're in bed asleep at night, right? You hear the glass breaking downstairs in the kitchen door. What do? You grab the 9-iron? Probably not. You get up, you get your weapon, you get your cell phone, you take up a position between the perceived threat and your family, sleeping down the hall, make the 911 call, and hope they get there before you have to do anything. But at least if you need to do something, you can. Why is that so difficult for these people to understand? When I say these people, I'm not even talking about the Hollywood elite living in gated compounds and all the security systems. What if you can't afford that? What if you don't have that? The first responder in any of these situations is you. Police officers can't be on everyone's front doorstep waiting for something, God forbid, to happen. So the first responder is you. What happened this morning in near Fort Worth? It's a place called White Settlement. I've also got complaints about that. Well, Rick, what kind of place is? Well, White Settlement. That sounds racist. Okay, cool your jets for a second. White Settlement had to do with Indian trading and all the rest. Had nothing to do with blacks. Oh, okay, never mind. Do you see what I'm saying? I truly believe that this the law they passed in Texas that allows armed members of the parish, members of the congregation to be armed once they've demonstrated proficiency and been checked out. I think it should be everywhere. Before you kick in the door of a church and start shooting people, I think you ought to know the message should be received loud and clear. No, these people won't be victims. Somebody is going to stand up between the amens and put you out of your misery. Well, Rick, that's not very Christian. Tell me why it's not. Tell me why it's not Christian to protect the innocent. All right. 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. I'm Rick Roberts, in for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. I'll be with you tomorrow night, early tomorrow morning as well, so hopefully we can get together for that. Just another tragic shooting story coming out of Texas at a church. You may remember Devin Patrick Kelly. He opened fire on church members at a church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. It's been right at 2 years ago. He killed more than 24 people sitting in the pews, including kids, sitting in the pews worshiping before he took his own life. And that's what evil does. It kills everything around it, and then when everything has been destroyed, it destroys itself. Texas passed a law this past year that allows churches to protect church members. And that's exactly what happened today. A small town by Fort Worth called White Settlement. Guy walks in with a shotgun, and he was met by church members who were armed, and they took him out. I'm sorry. Yes, I believe in God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, but I don't see anything in the Bible that says I need to turn the other cheek and let half the people in my pew be gunned down. I don't see where that is. Let's go to your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE. That's Lynn. Thank you for waiting.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
One of these days, it is going to come to the point where people, I'm afraid, are going to be too afraid to go to church to worship God.
Why?
And I think that is going to be a sad thing.
Okay, let me ask you something, Lynn. Well, that's paramount in your priorities, to worship, I would assume, worshiping your God. Why would you be put off? Why would you be put off about the possibility of someone coming in and doing something evil? Instead, why don't we protect each other?
Trust.
Beg your pardon?
Because you don't know who you can trust. You don't know if the person sitting next to you is just going to all of a sudden haul off and take out a pistol or something.
You're talking about people that may be a part of the church itself. Well, I don't know. Now, that's where your judge of character and the rest of it comes in, and whether they've been a church member for a long time. We haven't seen any church shootings like that. Generally speaking, these shooters come from outside the church. They're not members of the church, and they walk in and decide to start shooting up the place. And I think the law with Texas makes perfect sense. If you're sitting in a church, yes, it's a house of worship. It's a sacred place. I get all that. But we live in a very secular society, and evil manifests just about everywhere, including in a church. So I don't see any reason why there shouldn't be armed church members that have gone through whatever training they dictate. I mean, can you imagine the loss of life today? We could be talking something like Sutherland Springs, but instead of 24 people being shot, 2 were shot. Makes no sense to me. I don't know why everyone isn't armed. Unless, of course, you shouldn't be forced to be armed if, firearms scare you or something like that. No, you shouldn't be messing with them if they frighten you. But I don't understand why anyone that wants to be armed, that has demonstrated some proficiency, that's not whacked out on Ritalin or something else. I don't understand why everyone can't be armed. I'll tell you something else, Lynn. You've seen these stores, usually restaurants. There's some retail outlets as well. But they have the little the silhouette of a handgun with a red line through it, like no guns. I don't go to those places. I just don't. I mean, there are plenty of restaurants, plenty of retail outlets. Oh, Rick, why don't you go? Well, if you're a bad guy, if your job is robbing people or shooting people or whatever you're doing, where are you going to go? Going to go to the places that don't allow guns, or the place where you don't know if anybody's armed or not? I mean, it's sort of like a professional car thief walks up on 2 identical cars. One of them has the window halfway rolled down, the keys on the visor. The other one's got totally locked up, got all kinds of blinking lights, and the club on the steering wheel. Which one are you going to take? You're going to take the line of least resistance, right? So the message needs to be sent before you decide to walk in and kill a bunch of innocent people. Be prepared to lay down your own life because somebody is going to shoot you. And I think that is the message. That should be the rule, not the exception to the rule. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it very, very much. No, I'm not kidding. People are saying, do you really feel that way? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Here's the thing. I never want to be a victim, right? I realize first responders means simply that. They respond first. But the person that is truly the first responder is you. I mean, a police officer can't, as I said before, at the risk of being redundant, they can't be sitting on every front porch. Just like a paramedic can't be hanging out in the guest room watching TV until you need something. I mean, at the end of the day, you are your own first responder. So what are you going to do? I'll go back to that scenario. You're upstairs, you're in bed with your wife or your husband, whatever it is. The kids are asleep down the hall. You hear someone breaking in downstairs. What are you going to do? Grab a 9-iron? Get a baseball bat? What's wrong with you? They wouldn't be doing that unless they thought they could get away with it. All right. Now your national forecast for Travel Centers of America.
Rain that was in the southern U.S. yesterday has moved into the northeast and mid-Atlantic up and down the I-95 corridor. You'll have your wipers on most of the way today. Fortunately, for places like Boston, the high temperature will remain in the 40s, so too warm to support snow. Also for New York City, 48 today's high. Same for Philadelphia, 61 in Washington, D.C. Chicago will pick up those light snow flurries at least until later in the day today with a high of 38. For Indianapolis, clearing after some rain showers went through yesterday, high 41. Kansas City, mostly cloudy, 38. Dallas will see another 55-degree high today. For Atlanta, again, the rain ending, now moving up to the northeast, high today, 57. Snow flurries are winding down for northern sections of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And after today, it'll be clear in the region for the rest of the week. Your national forecast from Red Eye Radio. I'm meteorologist John Trout.
Phone lines are open. 1-866-907-3339. 866-90-RED-EYE. Now for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts.
And it's always a pleasure to be in for Eric and Gary when they are away. Normally, you can find me Monday through Friday doing afternoon drive from 2 to 5 in the afternoon Central Time at WBAP in Dallas, Texas. Taking some holiday time off, but when I'm available, always love to come in for Gary and Eric, and that's what we're doing right now. Our good friend Clayton Neville filed a couple of reports because, honestly, I've got a question for you. If you're sitting in church, which should be one of the most sacred places you could go, church, temple, wherever you happen to be, and someone walks in and starts shooting, would it not give you some comfort to know that some of those church members are armed and will try to stop this as soon as they can? Does that not make sense?
West Freeway Church of Christ in White Settlement near Fort Worth was a shock to neighbors.
I'd never expect that there'd be a shooting right here across the street.
Police say a gunman opened fire during a worship service, killing one and hurting another. Two parishioners then pulled out their weapons and killed the shooter.
Today, evil walked boldly among us. But let me remind you, good people raised up and stopped it before it got worse.
Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayborn praising the parishioners for saving lives. Clayton Neville, Fort Worth.
Courtesy of Westwood One News. Good job, Clayton. I don't see, listen, I understand. I'm a wordsmith by trade. I've been doing this a long time. And I know there's another side to every story. I get that. In cases like this, what's the other side? Well, Rick, it's a church. Yes, amen. And if you're a real Christian, you wouldn't take another life. Oh, if I'm a real Christian, I should sit there and let evil incarnate walk among us and kill totally innocent, defenseless people. Is that what you're saying? Because I don't know where that part is in the Bible. If you do, please let me know. I don't think there's anything that flies in the face of Christianity at all. What happened today? I told you earlier in Sutherland Springs about a year and almost 2 years ago, guy walks in the church. We didn't have the law then that we've got now, which would allow church members to arm themselves. The guy killed over 24 people, including kids. Does that make sense? Well, yes, hey, we got to turn the other cheek. I'm pretty sure that's not what God was talking about. Turn the other cheek and let innocent people die for your lack of action. I don't think that's what he meant. Now, if I'm wrong, I'm sure I'll be dealt with. But at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure this makes sense. And I think it should be national. The national message should be to any of these monsters parading as human beings, you go into a church and try to shoot a bunch of defenseless, innocent people worshiping their God, prepare. Prepare to meet the maker they're praying to because they're going to blow you away. That should be the message. All right, let's get to your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE, 866-907-3339. Let's try Richard in San Antonio again. Richard, how you doing?
Hi, Rick. How you doing today, man? I sure appreciate you giving me a chance to come back to me again.
You bet.
I got two things. First thing is, is there any way that this president right here can sign an executive order that makes it legal in all 50 states if you got the...
Okay, say Richard,
Yes.
I can barely hear what you're saying. Is there anything about what?
Is there any way the president can sign an executive order that give in all 50 states, if you are legal to carry a gun and with a good background, you are allowed override some of these weak states, California, New York, and all these Chicago and all these other states that don't allow American citizens to have the right to carry a gun. Is there any way that he can do an executive order? That was my question.
Listen, he can try to do by executive order whatever he wants to do. And now the state may reject it. They may oppose it. And, of course, then it would be a legal battle. But I don't know of anything specifically that would prohibit him from doing an executive order, no.
Well, starve the states out. Do not give them any federal money. And my second question was, have you heard anything about the President Donald Trump taking military action in Syria and Iraq? Have you heard anything about that?
Are you talking about the airstrikes?
Yes.
Yeah. I've been.
I thought he was a president that was going to end all these wars. So why is he going around starting these wars?
Well, he hasn't started. Okay, hang on just a second, Richard. He hasn't started any war since he took office. He hadn't started anything. He has responded. He has responded several times to people doing some things outside the treaty and some other things. As a matter of fact, we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. I got no problem with that. I got no problem with that at all. I mean, he hasn't started any wars. As a matter of fact, we were talking about that the other day. I think he's the first president in a long time that hasn't got the United States into a war. He likes the art of the deal, and that's fine with me. Richard, I appreciate you calling back. We had a bad connection last time. Joe in Chicago. Joe, thank you for waiting. I appreciate. Is it Joe? Yeah, there he is. Joe, thank you for waiting. Yeah. How you doing, Joe?
Oh, you betcha. Fantastic. Yourself?
Good.
Okay, I'd like to address the, I believe, elderly young woman that you initially had on your conversation, because she seemed genuinely concerned about going back to church to worship God, because she might not know if there's a psychopath there waiting to create some activity.
Sure.
Something wrong. The argument is okay, except what happens if the next psychopath wants to do it in a grocery or a pharmacy? Is she going to issue her pills? Is she going to stop shopping for food? Is she going to have it delivered, so forth and so on? That is basically my argument against gun-free zones, because the only people that are going to go into gun-free zones are the bad guy.
Right.
And it transcends to sanctuary cities. I live in the Chicago suburbs, if you will, but the same scenario applies. We're just not supporting our local police, our ICE agents, so forth and so on, and we're, not necessarily terrorists or kooks, like the guy that acted in church, but we're not supporting our local police and ICE people to keep most of the bad guys off the street.
No, very, very good points that you make. I mean, you can't live in fear. That's not what part of a free country is about. There are always going to be evil people. Always have been. There are always going to be people that manifest evil in its most horrific sense. The key is yes, we need to support law enforcement. We don't need to throw law enforcement under the bus, as we saw with the poser-in-chief for 8 years in Ferguson, Missouri. That was the flashpoint. At the end of the day, if it comes between, life and death, you're going to call your plumber? I mean, nothing against plumbers, but no, you're going to call someone that has taken a job. Let me just say this. I see my son-in-law, and my grandfather was a high sheriff, and I had cousins with Rampart in L.A. I see the other side of this. They get up every morning, pat the dog on the head, kiss their kids, grab some breakfast, put on the uniform, get in the car, and they want to come home at the end of the shift. It's not like, okay, I'm going to go out here and lay my body down. Well, they will if they have to, but they don't want to. It's just like, my son-in-law. I couldn't ask for a better guy for my daughter. I just couldn't. He's a great father, a great husband. He's a sergeant. He was a K-9 officer for about 6 years. As I look at this guy, he wants to come home and see those little girls and cook a hamburger outside on the weekend and drive down and all of us get together and go out to eat. He doesn't want to die, but he would if he had to, probably for somebody that he never knew and never knew him. That's what law enforcement at the end of the day is. So all of this stuff about, law enforcement is inherently racist. Let me let you in on something, all right? If you don't know, let me be the first to tell you. Police officers when they get up in the morning, they don't go into the kitchen. Hey, honey, don't have time for a lot of breakfast, maybe just a piece of toast. I got to go out and find a Negro to bust and incarcerate. That's not what they do. They get up every morning hoping they can help somebody, hoping they don't get caught in a mess. They see the worst that human beings have to offer, so we don't have to. Black Lives Matter and, all of these poverty pimps, and every city's got more than their share. They thrive off the perception that cops are racist. They're not. They're not racist. They're just like you and just like me. They just do something else for a living. So, let's get that straight to begin with. And they can't be everywhere. They can't. They can't. If I've heard it once, I've heard it 1,000 times. Guy comes running out of a store, yelling and screaming, shots being fired. People don't know what's going on. The police officer, okay, stop. Let me see your hands. Drop your weapon. And the guy doesn't do it. And he ends up getting shot. And, of course, wait a minute. He was a good boy. He'd never do anything like, why couldn't you shoot the gun out of his hand? Why couldn't you? Okay, stop. Just stop. Unless you want to get up every morning, put the uniform on, wear the badge, and go out and do the work, shut the hell up. You don't know what's going on. They're there dealing with the worst that human society's got to deal with, so you don't have to. All right, don't give me, yeah, you can tell, right? I get off on a rant on that because I see both sides of it. At the end of the day, I believe that every man and woman that has demonstrated some proficiency, that knows what they're doing, and they're not afraid, if they're comfortable, should be armed and allowed to carry wherever they want to. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. Rick Roberts in for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, talking about the latest church shooting here in Texas. And the shooter is dead thanks to church members that were armed because of a new law in Texas. Makes perfect sense to me. Personally, I think it ought to be national. Let's go to California, talk with Jay. Jay, thank you for waiting. I appreciate your patience. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and I agree with you over there in Texas about the Christians, because we're supposed to defend our wives and our children, and that includes our church members because they're a part of our family. But there should be armed people, parishioners in those pews, because if we take all the guns away from the honest guys, they're going to walk in there and they're going to kill a couple hundred people, and there's going to be nobody nobody will be there to try to stop them. And you're right, the police cannot get there in time, and that's what I had. But there should be that protection. And they said that the stores and all that. Well, I agree. There should be certain people with guns in there. So that's all I got.
No, Jay, I think you're right on point. I've heard people already today, primarily from the left coast and other places, saying, "Oh, no, we don't need to be doing this. We don't need to be arming citizens. You never know what those crazy Christians are going to be doing. If you want armed security, go out and hire them." Why? Some of these churches are very like that church in Sutherland Springs. It was a little bitty tiny church. They don't have extra money for armed security. But you had lots of people that went to church there that were licensed to carry. So why not? Let them bring it in the church. Get rid of that little silhouette with the red line through it. Oh, no. This is a gun-free zone. We don't want any guns here. Well, I'm asking you to rethink that. Personally, I don't go anywhere that has that decal on the window. I mean, I just don't. And it's nothing against the business owner. It's nothing against the business manager. It's just that, times are tough enough without advertising, hey, come in here. Nobody's got a gun. Go if you want to rob us, here we are. I don't do that. I don't do that. Well, Rick, don't you think some people are carrying if they go in? Yep, I do. But I don't want to advertise it. Do you see what I'm saying? I personally think every church in America should allow the church members, just like they now do in Texas, to carry their firearms to church with them. All right? It's not going to be a distraction. You're still going to be able to sing your hymns. You're still going to be able to worship God. You're still going to give him glory. You just don't have to be a sitting duck if somebody walks through the front door with a shotgun. It makes perfect sense to me. We'll find out what you think. This is Rick Roberts on Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now it's Red Eye Radio with talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be in for Eric and Gary. And by the way, I know this time of year you get rerun after rerun after rerun. We don't do that. This is a live show, Sunday night, Monday morning, taking your calls live, 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. Clayton Neville, great news guy. I work with him every single day out of the Dallas studio. He filed a pretty good report on yet another church shooting, and it happened this morning.
The shooting at West Freeway Church of Christ in White Settlement near Fort Worth was a shock to neighbors.
I'd never expect that there'd be a shooting right here across the street.
Police say a gunman opened fire during a worship service, killing one and hurting another. Two parishioners then pulled out their weapons and killed the shooter.
Today, evil walked boldly among us. But let me remind you, good people raised up and stopped it before it got worse.
Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayborn praising the parishioners for saving lives. Clayton Neville, Fort Worth.
Courtesy of Westwood One News. We appreciate that very much, Clayton, and Westwood One News. It was just 2017. Sutherland Springs. Gunman walks in a church in the middle of a prayer session. Everyone had their heads down praying, walks in, ended up killing more than 24 people before he was finally shot outside the church. Texas passed a law this past year, the so-called no gun zones or gun-free zones or whatever absurd thing they have under those little decals. You can now carry your gun into church. You have to let the church officials know, demonstrate some proficiency, and man, I'm okay with that. As a matter of fact, I'm okay. And if you're afraid of guns, you shouldn't have one. And nobody should be forced to do that. But any man or woman in this country in the year 2019, almost 2020, that wishes to do so ought to be able to carry anywhere. I've carried for years and years and years and years. I've been in this business a couple of decades. And as I said, I love what I do for a living. And I've loved it since I started it. But I don't want to die for it. At the end of the day, I see absolutely no reason why this Texas law shouldn't go national. Now, there would be individual states, I'm sure, the free to be you and me hug a tree folks that would say, oh, no, we don't want any more guns. Okay, fine. That'll stop all the violence. But if it's not a situation like that, why shouldn't people be able to carry? All right, let's go to your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE. And before I go too far, our thoughts and prayers go out to those people that lost someone today. And kudos to those people that pulled their pistols in church and got rid of the threat. It could have been much, much worse with a lot more loss of life. So kudos for that as well. 866-907-3339. Let's go to James in Riverside. James, thank you for waiting. How you doing, James?
Why stop at churches? Why not movie theaters, schools, baseball parks, Walmarts? I mean, last year in our country, 11,000 people were murdered by handguns. And let me just tell you something real quick. In New York State, in the past year, 5 policemen were killed by their own police in friendly fire accidents because 6 people were shooting at one person, and the one person one time didn't even have a gun. He knocked something off the shelf. It sounded like a gun. Everybody opened fire, and they killed one of their own. And about a month ago, it happened again. Friendly fire. The police killed. You make it sound like just because they have a gun in the church that they're going to act normal and they're going to be able to act like Clint Eastwood and take everybody out.
James, settle down. What's your point?
Okay, and no faith in God.
James, what is your point?
My point is you can't arm everybody in America. It's ridiculous.
No, you can't. Nonsense. You can't arm James. Let me get a word in. You sound pretty passionate. That's fine. I got no problem with that. But it's a conversation. You talk, then I talk. We go back and forth. No, not every person in America can be armed, nor should they. They have to demonstrate some proficiency. They can't be afraid of it. And yeah, I got no problem with guns in Walmart. I got no problem with guns at the ballpark. I got no problem with guns anywhere as long as the people that are carrying them have demonstrated some proficiency and we know they're not some, drugged out idiot. So I'm still struggling.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Can I ask you a question without getting interrupted?
Yeah, we wouldn't want to interrupt you, James. Go ahead.
You talk about it, your home and you have a gun. Let me ask you something. If you shoot somebody in your home and you kill them, what do you think that effect is going to have on your children and your wife psychologically?
Well, they'll be alive. We'll deal with the psychology later.
Okay, they'll be alive, but they're just seeing a murder by the person that they love just murdered somebody, and now they're going to be looking at you.
James, do you know the difference?
Like,
James,
wow,
do you know the difference
killer
between murder and self-defense? Do you know the difference?
Of course I do.
Okay, well,
what
explain
do you
it
think,
to me.
An idiot?
Well, you're starting to sound a little bit that way, and I want to give you a benefit of the doubt. Explain the difference between murder and self-defense.
Just because somebody's in your house, you can't shoot them in self-defense. It doesn't
James,
work.
let me say this with all the caring and concern I can muster. If my family and I are asleep in my home, and I wake up and James is in my house hovering over my child, there won't be any discussion. Your brains will be against the wall.
That's right, and you'll go to jail for the rest of your life.
No, you won't.
James doesn't have a gun.
Where are you getting your information?
You're in Dream World, and you tell lies on the radio.
I'm in a dream world, and I tell lies on the radio. Give me a lie that I've told. Give me one. He hung up. Brilliant retort, James. I lay mortally wounded by your rapier wit. That was California, right? Oh, well. James, feel free to give me a call at any time, all right? I appreciate your passion. You're just so wrong about everything. Let's go to Gene in Las Vegas. Gene, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Gene?
Happy New Year, and I think your last caller might need some Prozac because the serotonin level is maybe off a little bit,
Yeah, well, he's laboring under some sad misconceptions, but, unless people want to be informed, enlightened, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, no, but you don't yell. Anyway, so Happy New Year.
Thank you very much, and the same to you.
God bless you. And God bless you. Now, what I've just done is given you a very nice conservative greeting, okay? Which is the majority of the United States. They work hard, they get up, they try and, clear up their credit report, they save money, vacation, whatever. Thank God that Trump was elected. Now, that's the majority of the United States. The other part of the United States, which is the minority, is the intimidators, because they think that they're owed something. Most people in the United States are non-confrontational. The people that are the intimidators know that. So they know that we were intimidated easily. So what has to be done is, 1, get rid of the lawyers that say you're full of mental illness. 2, go back to swift justice. And 3, if you get thrown in prison, there's no TV, there's no nothing. You make it a punishment. Okay?
Right.
Now, the problem is, what's not really a problem, is getting rid of the intimidators, which you can't do. But if you go back to A and B, harsh punishment and swift justice, maybe that'll help.
Well, certainly, yeah, I agree with that. Sure, I'm struggling trying to figure out where you're going with this, but yeah.
Well, no, I'm getting there. It's a joke to be around people that are the minority that think something is owed to them because of the past.
Right.
It is a joke that these people are intimidated or like to intimidate people on the bus, throwing people off the bus. There was a new one that came up, it was on the web or something like that. Some person or lady or guy wanted to beat the hell out of a McDonald's worker because they put ketchup on his hot dog instead of mustard or something like that. You know. So what needs to be done is, and I understand your point about if you don't like guns, don't carry. I don't like guns. I was in the military, but I still don't like them. But it should be okay for people to carry guns to intimidate the intimidators or just blow them away.
Well, see, I disagree with that. I don't believe you carry a gun to intimidate someone. I don't believe that you pull out your firearm to scare somebody. I don't think that's what it's for. You know, if you're pulling your weapon, you need to be fully capable and ready to fire it. You know, James was having a hard time. You know, you can't shoot somebody inside your home. It's against the law. Well, that's not true. That's a lie. And I don't think people need to be pulling their firearms, their pistols, waving them around, trying to intimidate people or to scare people. That's not what they're for. They are for meeting a deadly threat. Instead of being the victim, you have an opportunity to defend yourself, your family, innocents around you. That's what I think it's for. I'm Rick Roberts, Red Eye Radio.
Tips from J.J. Keller and Associates Incorporated on the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. What's the impact? Say you commit a drug or alcohol violation. That violation is submitted to the clearinghouse, which means your employers will see it. And the way the clearinghouse works, it is unlikely a violation will be overlooked. Consider this situation. Let's say you've been with the same employer for 10 years. Money is tight, so you decide to moonlight with another carrier. But while moonlighting, you test positive for alcohol during a roadside stop. When your longtime employer runs an annual query, the violation will be uncovered, and you'll have to deal with whatever consequences come from that violation. Remember, the clearinghouse will change drug and alcohol monitoring significantly. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller and Associates Incorporated. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
This has been the Meritor Driver Report, brought to you by Pilot Flying J, Shell Rotella, and Meritor Aftermarket. Run with the bull.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. Rick Roberts in for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Glad you're along. 866-90-RED-EYE, that's the talk line. 866-907-3339 with you live Sunday night, Monday morning. During the holidays, a lot of people do reruns. Nothing wrong with that, I guess. We're taking your calls live tonight. Another Texas church shooting. But instead of over 24 people, including children, being killed by evil incarnate walking through the door, 2 people were shot. Why? Because they passed a law in Texas that says, yes, you can carry your gun into church. It's no longer one of those gun-free zones as long as they know who you are and you've demonstrated some proficiency and so on. That's exactly what happened. Guy walks in with a shotgun, starts shooting. 2 church members jump up from the pew, pull their weapons, and shoot the guy. That should be the rule, not the exception. It's sad that we even have to do that. But we live in a pretty violent time with a lot of really sick individuals. And I, for one, don't want to be a victim. Don't want my kids to be a victim. I don't want innocent people around me to be victims. And as long as, we've got this politically correct nonsense running the country, you have a right. You have a right to defend yourself. Absolutely. Let's go to, where am I going? Doug in Arlington, Texas. Oh, right down the road. Doug, thank you for waiting. I appreciate it. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing fine, Mr. Roberts. Thank you for taking my call. I listen to you on WPAP on the afternoon drive.
Thank you.
And I surely appreciate everything you say and do for freedom.
Well, thank you, sir.
I watched a short video about the shooting in White Settlement, and there were 3 shots fired, 2 by the evildoer and 1 by the hero.
Yep.
That hero deserves all the praise in the world because he did the right thing. And the parishioners of that church, allowing that to be the case, that their members could carry and protect themselves, that's the thing that is most amazing to me, that there were people to stand up and defend themselves. And I hope that you had a great Christmas, and I wish you a Merry New Year. And that's all I've got to say.
Well,
thank
Doug,
you, Mr. Roberts. I appreciate it.
Doug, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it very much. I have never understood, these restaurants and different people that have the gun-free zone stickers on the window, the doors usually. I've never understood what they're hoping to accomplish with that. Are you supposed to feel safer when you go in and order your sandwich? Phew, boy. Yeah, let me have extra cheese with that. Would you mind toasting it? Yeah, I feel so much better knowing nobody in here has a gun. It's absurd. It makes no sense whatsoever. None. Robert in Tennessee. Robert, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Robert?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I was telling your other fella, I've carried a concealed weapon for 20 years inside my clothes so it cannot be seen by people who don't want to see it. I understand that makes some people uncomfortable. But if I'm in a situation where there's somebody with a gun, I will put myself between that person and any child without giving it a second thought. And I feel like, I would like to know somebody else would do the same for my child.
And I think most people would. We get all bogged down in different state legislation, depending on the state, whether it's New York, California, which couldn't be any more different than the state of Texas. And then you get into the flyover states, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and so on. For whatever reason, in these major metropolitan areas, they think they are so much smarter than everyone else, and they've got a handle on things, when in fact, evil they don't care where you live. Evil doesn't care what your level of education is. Evil is just evil, and we shouldn't have to stand by and become victims because politically guns make me uncomfortable. Well, then don't carry one. But everyone else should be able... Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like if there's something you don't like on TV, change the channel, But my point is, only thing that's going to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. No, it don't matter how much you legislated, how many laws you passed. That's the only thing that will stop it.
No, you're absolutely right, Robert. I appreciate your call and your patience in waiting. I've got people that have, people will stop going to church if people are carrying firearms. What's your rationale for that? Your reason for going to church should transcend anything that happens on this earth. We're talking about peripheral issues. Another 24 people could have been killed today, save for some church members that stood up from the pew, pulled their pistols, and got rid of this guy. It went exactly like it should. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
Phone lines are open. 1-866-907-3339. 866-90-RED-EYE. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts.
And thank you so much. Always a pleasure to be in for the guys. If you're looking for a list of stations that carry Red Eye, maybe podcast, if you want to listen to the full 5-hour show live, you can go to the app on Red Eye Radio or just the Listen Live button at redeyeradioshow.com. A lot of people upset. Let's not even talk about guns. Okay, all right. And I normally don't. Through the week, except for this week, through the week, I do Monday through Friday, 2 to 5, Central Time, afternoon drive at WBAP out of Dallas. And generally, I don't do a lot of gun topics. I mean, the free to be you and me hug a tree folks, they're not going to change their mind. I'm not going to change my mind. But when it comes to something like what happened this morning, to me, it's common sense legislation. Can you get a permit to carry? Yes. Should people be allowed to carry in church? I think so. Or Walmart, or the ballpark, or anywhere else. Well, yes, we've approved you and looked at you and you've demonstrated proficiency to carry a firearm. Yeah, but I don't know if we ought to do it in Walmart. Why not? Or in a church. Why not? Today, 2 members of the church stood up out of the pew and killed a guy, shot him dead, that was shooting other people. Forget the gun-free zone stuff. If you don't want to carry a gun, don't do it. I don't think it should be mandatory. If it frightens you, if you know nothing about it, don't want to know anything about it, that's your prerogative. It's America. But for those people that have gone through the hoops it takes to carry a firearm, they should be able to carry it. I can protect myself, A, B, C, whoops, D, E, F. I'm a victim. Okay, G, H, I, I'm not. If you can carry, you can carry. And personally, Texas passed a law that I personally think was a good law this past year that allows people to carry in church. After that Sutherland Springs, Texas shooting, guy walks in, everybody's got their head bowed in prayer, and he kills 24 people. Had somebody been able to carry, perhaps, a loss of life is a loss of life. It diminishes us all by some degree. But today, only 2 people were killed. In 2017, in that little bitty Texas town, 24 were killed. All right, let me get to your calls. Let's go to Bryce. Bryce in New York. Bryce, thank you for waiting. I appreciate it. How you doing, Bryce?
Very good, Rick. I'm very happy to talk to you. I agree with you. I think the Texas law should be national. I think the 2 heroic church members who protected everybody's life should be praised. But I think there's a side to gun control that we must consider, and that is the history of governments that have butchered their people when they have had full control over arms. One of those governments, China, is now threatening the Hong Kong people. And this is something about the gun control argument that is always missed.
Okay, forgive me, Bryce, I'm missing your point as it applies to America. What are you saying exactly?
What I'm saying is, in America, everybody forgets why the Second Amendment is there. It is to protect against criminal, like the psycho who went into the church, foreign troops, and central government. Right now we have people calling for socialism, calling for more government control over our lives. They want what they have in Europe and Asia, and they want it here. And they want us disarmed. And
hold on, Bryce, just for a second. So you're concerned that a different form of government taking root in America is somehow going to disarm Americans? Is that right?
I see it in New York State. Okay. I live in New York State.
Okay, if they wanted to confiscate all the guns in America, it would be a physical impossibility, even if they could talk the military into doing it. I mean, we have, 320 some odd million people in the U.S.? We have almost 400 million guns. You know, I'm not.
I know that.
I'm not concerned about somebody knocking on the front door and saying, "Give me your weapon." What I'm concerned about is the production of ammunition being cut off, and then all of a sudden you're down to basement home loaders.
That's my point. I am concerned about that too, and that is one of their strategies.
Well, I guess, Bryce, and I mean this sincerely, the big picture down the road, blah, blah, blah. I don't think anybody's going to come confiscate 400 million firearms from the American people. I don't care how many Lakers tickets you give away at a gun buyback, all right? And I've never understood the gun buyback. If you're a carpenter, are you going to turn your skill saw, Swanson Speed Square, your drills, and are you going to turn all that in for a trip to the circus? No. Those are the tools of your trade, right? If you're a doctor, are you going to turn in your medical bag and stethoscope and all of that? No, because that's what you make a living with. Well, if you're a bad guy, if you're a criminal, are you going to turn your gun in so you can go see a hockey game? No, you're not. So the best you're going to do, I would assume, is, Grandpa's Carnival 22 sitting in the corner in the closet. When it gets down to the issue of gun control, we never seem to keep it in the here and now. Right here, right now, we've got an issue. We've got evil incarnate running all over the place. Why? Because liberalism is running all over the place. No rules, no regulations, no guidelines, no nothing. Anything's okay under any circumstance. And, I'm sorry, human beings aren't created that way. We have to have rules, guidelines, and parameters. So we've got these mass shootings everywhere. Well, upstate New York, that guy that took a knife and stabbed 5 Hasidic Jews. Democrats will tell you, well, if we could just get rid of those Ginsu knife commercials, if we could just do... Okay, it's not about any of that. If he didn't have that, he'd go get a brick and hit you in the head with it. It has to do with how we treat each other or don't treat each other as human beings. Nobody's going to come get 400 million guns out of the hands of Americans. That's never going to happen. They could make it tough to purchase ammunition. They've already tried that. A lot of home loaders, a lot of people that do that themselves. I think everybody understands the Second Amendment. Yeah, there are people like Ocasio-Cortez, Tlaib, Omar, Presley, probably a lot of Democrats would love for you to be defenseless. Why? Because their entire lot in life is coming to the rescue, riding in on the white steed, rescuing you from economic perils that you never knew you were going to have. Trust the government. Rely on the government. Depend on the government. We'll take care of you. That's what Democrats, that's what their entire platform is. I don't need a daddy. All right? I don't. I don't need you to invest my money. I don't need you to feed my kids. I don't need you to drive me to work. You know, I need you to do what the Constitution of the United States of America says you should do. And by my account, you haven't done a very good job for the last few years. You know, we finally get a non-politician in office, not beholden to the good old boy network, not beholden to anything in D.C., not beholden to a political party, beholden to one thing, the people that voted for him. Imagine that, a politician that doesn't talk out of both sides of his mouth that says, I'm going to build a wall, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that, and then goes about the business of trying to get it done. That's why people in D.C. hate this guy so much, because he's not playing the game. The game is tell you whatever you have to be told to get your vote, and then when you get there, go along to get along. You know, when it comes to gun control, you know, we don't need any more gun control. If I hear one more time, well, if we just got all the assault weapons, I don't even know what an assault weapon is. I've got 2 AR-15 Colt Sporters that I bought for investment purposes many years ago. What, a collapsible stock, flash suppressor, more than a 20-round magazine. What is it to you? Doesn't matter, because most people are good people. They're not going to pick it up and go kill somebody. What you've got to worry about, hey, Democrats, how about bringing back the nut houses? Forgive me, was that politically incorrect? The mental institutions. Remember those when they shut them all down in the mid-'60s? Well, they'll never get better as long as they're ostracized. No, they'll be sleeping under the bridges and panhandling, and some will, reach out and kill somebody or kill themselves. So let's do what we know to be right. Those people that are so damaged mentally, let's get them under control. Let's confine them. Maybe we can help them. Who knows? But at the very least, they'll be out of harm's way, and other people around them will be out of harm's way. There's all kinds of things we could do, but none of these damn politicians will do it for fear of upsetting one person. It's sort of like when you throw a pebble in a pond, you see the ripple effect all the way back to the shore. That's what every politician, by the way, on the left and right, that's what they're afraid of. They're afraid they're going to get a ripple in the pond and they might lose a vote. You know, I'm sorry. If you want to make politics your new religion, you be my guest. I bow to a mightier God than that. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. Rick Roberts in for Gary McNamara and Eric Carley. Thank you so much for being along. This is Sharon. Sharon in Washington. Sharon, how you doing?
Oh, fine. And how are you doing, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm really concerned about the Walmarts, all the shooting that goes on in these Walmart stores, and why Walmart hasn't done anything to protect the people by having armed security or an armed officer. There are theaters, because there's been theater shootings, and they hire armed police officers, and Walmart does not do nothing to protect the people that makes their living so great. And then also the fact that when the greeters ask people to show them their receipts when they're taking out large flat screen TVs and barbecues, it's obvious they did not pay for them, and all the people do is tell them to blank off, and there goes your price of foods going up, because Walmart just backs down from these people and let these people, these thieves, run and rule and treat their workers like crap. And
I'm not saying it doesn't happen, Sharon. First of all, I don't know what security steps Walmart has taken. We had another situation here in El Paso, Texas, not that long ago. A bunch of people were shot. A guy didn't like Mexicans, shot a bunch of people. I don't know what Walmart has done, if anything. If you work for Walmart, maybe you could enlighten me. As far as people walking out on the greeters, I've always thought maybe they ought to, some of those greeters are of mature years, if I can say that. Sounds like maybe they need a little help. I'm not saying what you're saying isn't factual. I just don't have any information to that end. Sharon, good call. Please don't be a stranger. Jim in Massachusetts. Jim, thank you for waiting. Hi.
Yes, sir, Mr. Roberts.
What's going on?
Appreciate talking to you.
Thank you.
Well, in the communist state of Massachusetts here, where they don't allow many guns, that's for sure, but they allow enough for us to protect ourselves. I was listening to you, and I was fascinated by all the different takes you had on different things. And I wanted your opinion also. I don't really think that things are going to change. No matter how many rules you put in place, somebody could still walk into a church and shoot somebody.
Sure.
Some crazy person.
Yeah, but the likelihood of them wiping out 24 people is much reduced if people can carry their firearms into church to worship their God.
Now, I'm a licensed to carry person, although I don't carry. Okay? I have guns, and I have them at home, and I'm also an expert. And that's not me. That's the military that says I am. But I'm an older guy. I'm 65 now, so I don't fool around with that stuff. But, I'm starting to think maybe I should start carrying my gun, because you never know what's going to happen in here. And the point is to save people's lives, not to take somebody's.
Exactly. That's the whole thing. And if you're not afraid of firearms, if you're proficient, if you've demonstrated that proficiency, you absolutely should be carrying. Because this is a pretty violent world we live in. And the sooner we wake up and realize that, the better off we'll be. Good call. I'm Rick Roberts. This is Red Eye Radio.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now it's Red Eye Radio with talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or just starting your day, welcome to the show. For Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts. From the Pilot Flying J Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
And thank you so much. Just wanted to make you aware we are live with you tonight. No reruns during the holidays. We're live Sunday night, Monday morning, taking your calls live, 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. If you're looking for a list of stations or podcasts, if you want to listen live to the full 5-hour show, you can do that on the app or the listen live button at redeyeradioshow.com. Now, we started the show with yet another church shooting in the state of Texas, but thanks to a Texas state law that was passed in 2019 after Sutherland Springs, remember that name? Sutherland Springs, very small Texas town. 2017, a guy walks in. Everyone's got their head bowed. They're praying in church, and he kills 24 people before losing his own life. Well, in this case, at White Settlement, no, it has nothing to do with black people. It has to do with Indians back in the day. In White Settlement, guy walks in, starts shooting. 2 church members stand up, pull out their pistols, and shoot him dead, just as it should be. As a matter of fact, Governor Greg Abbott applauded these people, as I have, and I'm sure many others have. I just have never understood if you have demonstrated proficiency, background checks, all that other stuff to carry a firearm, why you shouldn't be able to carry it just about anywhere. All right, let's go to your calls. Let's go to Alyssa in Arizona. Alyssa, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it. How you doing, Alyssa?
I'm doing great, Rick. How about yourself?
I'm well, thank you.
Good to hear. So my conjure would be, and of course, a perfect world, but every state needs to have the same laws. State about gun efficiency, about where you store it, where you can keep it. I've gotten asked quite a few times. I have a 45 Rock Island Armory, and I carry it on me, sometimes with a holster, sometimes without, depending on what pair of pants I'm wearing. But I've gotten asked many times. I've actually gotten almost escorted out of a 99-cent store, and the cashier wanted to fight me out in the parking lot because I had my gun in my pants. And we stopped by there real quick just for a barbecue, a couple items for a barbecue. And the lady was irate with me, and she said, ma'am, we have a sign. And I said, well, where is your sign placed? And she says, oh, it's over there, where she couldn't even show me. And literally she said, do you want to go outside and do this? In front of my children. It's mixed thoughts back and forth, mixed reactions from people. I've actually gotten thanked by a few parents for carrying my gun on me, being strong, so-called, enough to have my gun on me, and they knew that they were going to be safe. Actually, how do they really know? Because how do they know if I've had gun training? If I know how to shoot a target and hit it, there's so many different aspects with gun control, but Arizona doesn't even know, about 90% of them doesn't even know that we can carry a gun anywhere we want unless it is directed on that sign. And most of the time I think I've only seen them at bars and banks. Where you cannot keep a gun and carry one. Yeah, well, I believe.
Look, if you're going to a bar, you shouldn't be carrying a gun anyway.
Correct. I think a bouncer should be having a gun, though. There's some extreme fights, and we've actually had a couple deaths here in the past couple years with guns and the bar scene. But I think every school, every teacher should be armed. We live in a society now that is hyper-focused on video games that, warfare and all that other stuff. It's desensitizing our children and everything. And, yes, I let my children play. I'm not going to say the names of them, but, those games, and on a rare occasion. But he knows that he's fighting bad guys. It's not, hey, I'm going to kill this guy. I'm going to, stab him 48 times or anything like some of the other games. But
no, I mean, you have to have common sense with this. I mean, I remember, I'm not going to give a lot of specifics, but my daughter was talking to me one day, and her husband, my son-in-law, is a police officer. He's a sergeant with the police force, K-9 officer. And I have two granddaughters. And I forget it's been a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago. And they were little bitty, like, 4 years old, 3 years old. And they'd set up a play date with somebody they met at church. And my daughter was a little concerned about the fact that, they'd never been over to the house. And like any good, responsible parent, do you have a pool? If you do, is there a fence around it? Are there any guns in the home? And that's a perfectly acceptable question as far as I'm concerned for a parent to ask. If my kid's coming over to play with your kid, do you have any guns in your house? Well, yeah. The dad is a police officer. He's got plenty of guns around the house. My daughter has her guns. And it was sort of a point of contention, I think, initially, but they did work it out once they got to know each other better. All of this back and forth about, the Second Amendment says this and the second. Okay, first of all, if you need somebody to explain the Second Amendment to you, you got bigger problems than carrying a firearm. This politically correct nonsense that, what's her name on The View? If we could just take a giant magnet and sweep it all across the world, suck up all the guns as she leaves with her, armed driver to her gated compound. We need to stop making political issues out of common sense issues. The common sense is as plain as the nose on your face. You are your own first responder. Police response time is better and better depending on where you live. They will get there as fast as they possibly can. You should not be a victim between the time the call is made and the time they arrive on scene. That's why you carry a gun. You don't carry a gun to pull it out and wave it around and intimidate and scare people. You pull it out only if you're trying to put down what you believe to be a real threat to your life or your family or the innocent people around you. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, it shouldn't be any more difficult than that. The problem is, just like with abortion and so many other issues, life and death issues, we play politics with this stuff. And that's my biggest problem. Stop playing politics with it. You know, I mean, the anti-gun people out there, if you don't want guns, don't get one. Well, I don't think anybody ought to have a gun. Well, who gave you that right? I've got a right under the Constitution. Well, I don't think it's a good right. Well, you know, people in hell want ice water too, but they're probably not going to get it. At the end of the day, I have a right. And if you don't want to exercise that right, I support you. But you can't tell me not to do something because you don't like it or you're afraid of it. And unless, you know, you're going to lock yourself in your house with the shades drawn 24/7, at some point you got to go out. And there's some really nasty folks out there. It's just that simple. I don't know why we have this continuous debate. I mean, it goes on and on and on about gun control. What is it you're trying to control? What is it the gun's doing? Is it jumping out of the drawer, loading its magazine, putting the magazine in the butt, jumping? What is it you're trying to control? Well, we've got to control the flow of guns. Wait, what is the gun doing that you need to control? Answer me that. Well, there's just too many guns. Oh, well, there's more guns than we have people in the United States. So what is it what are you trying to accomplish? Well, we don't need weapons of war. Who was it I had a conversation? Was it Beta? I don't know who it was. It's weapons of war. What the hell is a weapon of war? You know, as I said, I've got 2 Colt AR-15 Sporters. Is it the collapsible stock, the flash suppressor, more than a 20-round clip? Well, what is it? Well, I don't know. Somebody told me that. That's what I thought. What is it you're trying to control? You're trying to control an inanimate object when you should be trying to control the evil people that are behind that, or cars that run people down, or knives like attacked 5 people in a rabbi's home in upstate New York yesterday. It's the software, not the hardware. But Democrats won't do that because they realize there's no gain to it. Well, what if I just tell them it's a people problem? Then I can't do anything. If I can't do anything, they won't vote for me. There you go, right on the button. What is it Ron White says? You can't fix stupid. This is Rick Roberts on Red Eye Radio.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. I'm Rick Roberts, in for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. Going to get to your calls, 1-866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. Coming up a little bit later in the show, I've got to tell you, by way of my good friend Curtis Ellis, and hopefully you know who he is, but the top 10 things all the experts got wrong in 2019. And it was a bunch. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. Let's get to your calls. Let's go to James in Virginia. James, thank you for waiting. How you doing, James?
Doing good. How you doing? Thank you for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
I was calling just to try to let everybody know what's going on in the state of Virginia as far as billionaire Bloomberg and blackface Northam's gun laws that they're trying to bring into Virginia. Which one is SB 16? I believe that deals with assault weapon ban, which includes anything from a pistol grip to a magazine that has the capacity to hold more than 9 shells or 9 rounds of ammunition.
Okay.
In Virginia, and the other thing was the politicians that just don't hold up, being behind for the people, because Virginia has a big movement going on right now to try to stop these bills from being put in place as far as doing Second Amendment sanctuary counties. And I think we were up to about 90 Second Amendment sanctuary counties that have been voted and passed on, and out of 95 counties in Virginia, I believe it is. And Governor Northam has actually went as far as saying that, well, if we don't turn in these guns that he's got the proposed ban on, as far as sending the National Guard in to enforce this. Now, I think that's all a threat, but it's still a little bit of a scary situation. I mean, he's talking about sending the National Guard in on his own people.
Yeah, I talked about that, the last day I was on doing my regular show during the day. I think it's all an intimidation tactic. I don't think you get the National Guard to do it in the first place.
I don't believe so either, but, I mean, what right does a politician have to force, or even say that he's going to force the government on their own people?
Well, I don't think he has any right. Again, the reason that this is such a mess, the reason that we keep talking about gun control, I think if I'm going to hear it one more time, I'm going to throw up. It's because it's politicized. That's why. I mean, Second Amendment's very clear. Well, Rick, that only applied to muskets. Okay. All right. Really? I don't play that game. I don't go back and forth with fools. I just don't. If you don't like guns and you're trying to cater to an anti-gun constituency, be my guest. But just because you don't like something, just because you don't support something, doesn't mean that everybody else has to acquiesce to what it is you don't like or what it is you think we shouldn't do. Again, and I know I'm making people upset because I'm hearing from them tonight, everyone that has passed a clean background check, you're not some kind of serial killer, you've demonstrated proficiency, you're not afraid of the weapon, you're not going to pull it out and accidentally shoot yourself in the foot or somebody else. As long as you're not Barney Fifing it, I think every single person that can and wants to should be able to carry anywhere they want, whether it's a movie theater, whether it's a Walmart, whether it's a restaurant. Again, I've never, if you're a restaurant owner and you've got that little silhouette of a gun with a line through it on the door, who is that supposed to cater to? Oh man, let's go get a pizza here. There's no guns. We don't have to worry. Who is it you're trying to reach with that? Because personally, I wouldn't go into a place that would advertise to the more evil among us that, hey, come on in here. Nobody's got a gun. We won't mess with you. That's just me. Good call. I appreciate it very, very much. Let's go to Troy in Albuquerque. Troy, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Troy?
Hey, doing great, Rick. Thank you for your time. I appreciate that very much. The picture says it so clear when you can see what's going on. And Breitbart has put that video out of the whole incident that you see. It happened so fast.
In White Settlement today?
Yeah. And it's there for, when I started sharing it with all my other brothers in the Church of Christ throughout the nation, it was 200,000 people had seen it. Now it's up to like 700,000. So, it really just drives home the importance of, how if people have their weapons, they can protect themselves. I mean, this guy had a hood over his head, so that was an indication. If you've ever been in a Church of Christ, I mean, you don't worship with your head covered.
Right.
And so if this guy's got a hood over his head, we're going to look at this guy. And so the guy in the video, you'll see there's only one hero that, from what I understand, he's an ex-FBI, but I don't know. I'm just saying he hit a moving target 20 feet away, headshot, and put him down. And one shot, done. And I'm like, yeah. But that was so fast how that could have went totally different sideways and in other different ways.
No, he is an absolute... And I think this was a Church of Christ, if I'm not mistaken. He's an absolute hero, and he should be applauded for what he did. We should pray for those involved, and we should pray for those that, put up the ultimate sacrifice. Hey, listen, I appreciate the call. Now, your national forecast.
Rain that was in the southern U.S. yesterday has moved into the northeast and mid-Atlantic up and down the I-95 corridor. You'll have your wipers on most of the way today. Fortunately, for places like Boston, the high temperature will remain in the 40s, so too warm to support snow. Also for New York City, 48 today's high. Same for Philadelphia, 61 in Washington, D.C. Chicago will pick up those light snow flurries at least until later in the day today with a high of 38. For Indianapolis, clearing after some rain showers went through yesterday, high 41. Kansas City, mostly cloudy, 38. Dallas will see another 55-degree high today. For Atlanta, again, the rain ending, now moving up to the northeast, high today, 57. Snow flurries are winding down for northern sections of Wisconsin and Minnesota, and after today it'll be clear in the region for the rest of the week. Your national forecast from Red Eye Radio. I'm meteorologist John Trout.
Phone lines are open. 1-866-907-3339. 866-90-RED-EYE. Now, for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley, Rick Roberts.
Thank you so much. All across America, it is Red Eye Radio. Well, another church shooting in Texas, but with a much different outcome. This one in White Settlement, 2 people were killed, including the gunman, because of a law passed in Texas last year that says if you're a church member and you've gone through the appropriate steps, you can carry your firearm in the church. That's exactly what happened. 2 church members got up, blew the guy away. I'm already hearing from people, Rick, I thought you said you were a Christian. What's up with this? You're advocating killing people. Okay. You really need me to explain that? Yes, believe in God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. I do. Not telling you what to do. I'm not the poster boy for Christianity. But if you check the original Hebrew text, it doesn't say thou shalt not kill. It says thou shalt not murder. Big difference between killing and murdering. But you probably don't need me to take you to Sunday school on that. Good friend Clayton Neville filed several reports, as you might imagine. There were new developments throughout the day when it happened earlier this morning.
The shooting happened at a Sunday morning service at West Freeway Church of Christ in White Settlement near Fort Worth. The city's police chief, J.P. Bevering, says a gunman shot and killed one person and injured another.
A couple of members of the church returned fire, striking the suspect who died at the scene.
This man lives near the church and calls the response from armed parishioners heroic.
It can happen anywhere, anytime, and the more prepared you are, the better it's going to turn out in a bad situation.
Police now investigating a possible motive. Clayton Neville, Fort Worth.
Courtesy of Westwood One News. Thank you, Clayton. Very good report. Personally, I think this law ought to be national. Of course, you're going to get states like New York and California And maybe Illinois, they're going to, no, we don't want that. Okay, well, how are you going to stop shootings? I don't know, but we'll figure it out. Okay. I would make it available. If I were President Trump, I would say, I will make this available to any state that wants to take part. Makes perfect sense. Let's go to your calls. Kathy in Colorado. Kathy, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Kathy?
Hi, I'm fine. And anyway, I was calling to say that I live in a rural area, and when we moved out here, we contacted our local police, and they said that we're not going to be able to be there, so you better take any means possible to protect yourself.
What part of Colorado do you live in? You don't have to give me your address, just what part?
Hudson.
Oh, okay. All right.
The eastern part.
Yeah, because I lived on top of Bear Mountain, which is an evergreen, and the only thing up there was my house and the Jefferson County Emergency Tower. So if anything happened, God forbid, and it didn't, response time would be a little while.
Yes. And so you better be able to take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. But, that's just as true in downtown Chicago, downtown New York, downtown L.A., as it is for those of us that grew up in rural areas.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then I wanted to mention also that every time you hear in the news, it was a semi-automatic weapon. It was a semi-automatic weapon. Well, aren't they all, unless it's a single-shot shotgun?
Well, the problem with that, Kathy, is that you got news reporters that are being given advice by news directors, which for the most part are liberal. You're correct. Unless it's a single-shot rifle, like my first rifle when I was 8 or 9, it was a single-shot .22 bolt action. You had to pull the bolt out, put your shell in, put the bolt back in, boom, fire one shot. Pull the bolt out and do it over and over again. If it's got a 10-round clip, 12-round clip, 20-round clip, those are all semi-automatic. It's illegal in the United States to go buy a fully automatic machine gun, with a few exceptions. Like if you're a collector or a dealer, you've gone through a bunch of federal paperwork. But no Tom, Dick, or Harry can just walk off the street and say, yeah, give me one of those machine guns and lots of bullets. That's what they want you to believe, but that's not true. Kathy, good call. I appreciate it. That's a beautiful part of the country there. Ken in California. Ken, thank you for waiting. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing great, Rick, and it's just really great to hear your voice. Talk radio in San Diego has not been the same since you left, so it's great to hear your voice again.
Thank you, sir.
What do you think about if we were to federalize all gun crimes like we do bank robbery and kidnapping? Would that have any effect?
Man, if you had the right people, if you had a bunch of Trey Gowdies, yeah, maybe. Unfortunately, politicians tend to find the lowest common denominator in just about everything. And it may end up being more trouble than it's worth, of course. And then you got a problem with states' rights, which I'm, as you know, if you listen in San Diego, I'm a big believer in states' rights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I know. Hey, you and I and guns go back 18 years. I don't know if you remember this one incident. It happened in my town here, and you were on the air. I happened to get behind the police barricades when some guy was shooting up his van, and you had me on the air for an hour and a half reporting that incident when everybody else had already left because the 5 o'clock news was over.
I do recall that. And then I remember all the television news stations storming the radio station. We want this sound. We want that. Hey, I got to talk to the guy first. Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was fun. Yeah. Thank you. Good to hear your voice, my friend. Really good. Thank you.
Ken, thank you very much. You can catch me during the day, Monday through Friday from 2 to 5 Central Time. I do afternoon drive for News Talk 820 WBAP. I appreciate it very, very much, and it was good to hear your voice again. I'm starting to remember that phone call. The guy was doing a play-by-play to this guy just went nuts and was shooting up the place. Good call. Let's go to Phil in Las Vegas. Phil, thank you for waiting. I appreciate your patience very, very much. There he is right there. How you doing, Phil?
Oh, I'm doing great. I just wanted to say
it seems like our main problem is we're dealing with fear and, to a large part, and ignorance to a larger extent, mainly because people don't understand how a firearm functions, and even if they do understand how a firearm functions, they are afraid of the repercussions of using it. I've carried a firearm for over 30 years now. I'm working right now and carrying one on the job, and you have to make decisions that are pretty difficult. You have to be able to say, I am willing to take a human life if another life is in danger, and I think that scares too many people.
And you know what? I understand how they feel. I truly do. Until, how do I put this? I want to put it as simple as I can. Until you've had the first gun pulled on you and you've stared down the barrel of somebody else's firearm, it really doesn't click that if you're going to carry a firearm, it's a tool. You're going to carry it for a reason. And that reason is to stop any deadly force against you, your family, your loved ones, innocent people, and so on. But I understand people that don't want to do that. I get it. Absolutely, I understand. But their desires don't outweigh everyone else's desires, especially when it's a Second Amendment in the Constitution. And, you say you've carried for 20 years. Personally, I think you ought to be able to carry in Walmart or Target or your school or the church or anything else. I mean, if you've been cleared to carry, why are you not cleared to carry in certain areas?
Well, I carry everywhere anyway. I have a CCW and several other permits that say I can carry pretty much anywhere I want, but I take those little circle with the bar through it pictures as kind of a advisement. It doesn't stop me from going into the place, but I'm still carrying a gun.
I don't think it stops most people. The silhouette of a handgun with the bozo circle around it and then the line through it, like, not here. No, nobody's coming in here eating their sub sandwich with a firearm. No way. I've never understood who is supposed to, who is being impressed by that? Where's the appeal? Is it so you can have your meatball sandwich with extra cheese and feel good about yourself? Or I don't get it. I don't understand that. In this thing in Texas, I mean, we've already seen today, 2017, 24 people, including children, were gunned down for doing what? Sitting in a pew inside their church with their heads bowed, praying. Man, there's a hotter place in hell for people like that. Isn't there? Today, thanks to this new law, a couple church members got up and gunned the guy down. And I don't think God has a problem with that. Good call. I appreciate it very much. Roy in Wichita Falls. Roy, thank you for waiting. I appreciate your patience. How you doing, Roy?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Hey, back when this first dust-up came up about open carry and we finally passed a law here in Texas, Walmart came out and said they had a problem with open carry. They didn't have a problem with concealed carry.
Right.
And I just, wanted to make that point. But my other point is, with all this LGBT crap and all that came up and all the laws and people, couldn't refuse to bake and all that kind of crap for gays and lesbians, why can't we do the same thing to them about the gun in the circle?
Okay, you lost me somewhere in there. What do firearms and gay people have to do with one another?
Well, we force the gay and lesbian thing on us, and we can't reject it. But we have to reject carrying a gun when we have a license.
Okay, again, I'm not sure how you're making the connection between lesbians, gays, transgenders, and firearms. Some of the best range shooters I know are gay. I mean, they just are. You know, I didn't know they were gay for a long time. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what the connection is. Personally, I don't see a connection between gays, lesbians, and firearms. I just don't see it. This is what I wish. I wish that the American people would force the politicians to stop politicizing the Second Amendment. It's not about gays, not about lesbians, not about liberals, not about conservatives. It is what it is. And you have every right, as long as you've demonstrated proficiency, to carry a gun. You shouldn't be made a victim. Somebody's breaking in your house. Well, I can't do anything till the police get here. That's insane. It makes no sense. Forefathers knew that. Founding fathers knew that. You got somebody kicking in your front door, but you've got to wait till the cops get there. They don't want you to become a victim. You shouldn't want to be a victim either. All right. Good call. Thank you. Sorry. Just don't understand. Maybe it's me. This is Rick Roberts on Red Eye Radio.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
All across America, it's Red Eye Radio. Rick Roberts in for Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. I know some of you are still on hold. If you have the tenacity to try to get in and the patience to wait, you will get on the air. I promise you that. Good friend of mine, Curtis Ellis. You hear him on my show from time to time, see him on Fox. Thanks to him, the top 10 things the experts got wrong in 2019. Yeah, the economy is going to crash. Tariffs are a tax on consumers. And of course, we all know that. Other countries won't work with President Trump. And it goes on and on. Manufacturing jobs, they just won't come back to America. Trump's tax cuts are Armageddon, and they're only for the rich. Yeah, the top 10 things that the so-called experts, and I'll explain what an expert is for you. They got it so wrong last year. Let's hope they smarten up in 2020. 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-907-3339. 866-907-3339. And like I said, if you're on hold, I promise you I'll get you on the air. I never like to dismiss anybody that took all the time to get in. But we got to talk about the experts. Oh, yeah. Hillary Clinton was going to win, too. It didn't work out so hot. The top 10 things the experts got wrong in your calls. That's all coming up next. I'm Rick Roberts on Red Eye Radio. We'll take your calls, 866-90-RED-EYE. That's 866-90-RED-EYE. And by the way, if you're looking for a list of stations, podcast, or to listen to the full 5-hour show, you can do that at the Listen Live button at RedEyeRadioshow.com. That's RedEyeRadioshow.com. Don't miss it. And the guys, they'll be back. I'll be back with you tomorrow. Your calls straight ahead.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.